Oh my God.
Those under 25 years old in the Midwest are about to experience potentially the coldest temperatures of their lives.
More than 200 million people across the U.S. are facing freezing temperatures. In Chicago, more than 24 hours straight of sub-zero temperatures.
It is colder here than on Mount Everest, in parts of Antarctica and Siberia.
Yeah, it's -1 degrees out right now. I'm not filming outside. We just went through some of the coldest days in Chicago history. And weirdly enough, exactly 40 years ago, Chicago went through a somehow worse, brutal winter.
A devastating blizzard of winter that virtually strangled the city and left its citizens struggling to cope in over 20 inches of snow.
In 1979, Chicago went through an infamous blizzard that had huge political consequences. The mayor at the time was Michael Bilandic. When Richard J. Daley died from a heart attack in 1976, Michael was appointed acting mayor by city council and won a special election 6 months later to serve the remainder of boss Dick Daley's term. He was up for re-election in 1979.
On behalf of my husband, I want to thank all of you who have helped to keep Chicago strong. With your support, I know he will continue to make our city a good place for us all to live, work, and raise our children.
Keep Chicago strong. Re-elect Mayor Bilandic.
His only opponent in the Democratic primary was someone who really didn't have a shot, Jane Byrne. Jane was Dick Daley's protege, but she didn't have enough establishment support, so her candidacy was a long shot. But then, things changed on January 13th, 1979.
The new blanket of snow is now blowing over the streets, highways, and commuter rail tracks all over the Chicago area. The 18 to 35 mile-an-hour winds are whipping up drifts and driving the wind chill factor way down.
Only 2 to 4 inches of snow was expected, but Chicago got 20 inches of snowfall instead. At the time, it was the second worst snowfall in Chicago history. The snow was coupled with frigid Arctic temperatures. The average temperature that winter was 18 degrees, making it the second coldest in Chicago history. The city wasn't ready to handle that much snow that was not going to be melting anytime soon. Airports were shut down, roads were clogged, roofs were collapsing under the weight of the snow, and garbage wasn't collected for 10 days. Cars were left abandoned on the street, and the mayor announced that he was going to start issuing tickets to clear the streets, saying that there would be no exceptions, even for the elderly or sick. If there are such hardship cases, they can tell that to a judge. That's what a judge is for. Plowing in residential streets didn't start until a full week later, though the Tribune described the street that Michael Bilandic lived on as being thoroughly plowed. Michael would go on TV and say that the airports were open. They weren't. He'd say that the CTA was operating. It wasn't. The Tribune also reported, trains had actually bypassed stations in the city's black neighborhoods, leaving thousands of people out in the cold. While cold weather is a frustrating inconvenience to some of us, it's a reminder that extreme conditions affect vulnerable communities first and the hardest. And then there's this story.
The city's rage at the snow was epitomized by the bizarre story of a frustrated snowplow driver. 2 weeks after the January 12th blizzard, at the end of an 18-hour shift, the driver went on a rampage. He drove his plow into 34 cars, leaving 1 man dead and 5 injured. He told arresting officers, "I hate my job. I want to see my kids."
Jane Byrne capitalized on the city's anger.
No one could stop the snow, but good planning can prevent the collapse of public transportation and clean this city up fast. I'm Jane Byrne, Commissioner of Consumer Sales under the late Mayor Daley. Nothing seems to be working the way it used to. I think it's time to get Chicago working again for you.
Vote for Jane Byrne in the Democratic primary.
The snow remained on the ground for a full 51 days, but by the time the election rolled around in February, the skies had cleared for a perfect day. Perfect weather for angry Chicagoans to go vote and have the highest turnout in 2 decades. Jane Byrne won and became the first and only woman so far to be the mayor of Chicago. Jane has a complicated legacy as a mayor, but that's a story for another time. The real takeaway from the '79 blizzard? In Chicago, even weather is political. Thank you so much for watching. This web series is entirely funded by you, the audience, so if you like the work that I'm doing here, please consider donating on my Patreon. It's really cold out there, so please stay warm, please stay safe.